Welcome to another edition of Yarning It Up for Mental Health Week. And my name's Fiona. I am one of the SIMNI members, so Soroptimist International Moreton North. And tonight I'm interviewing, and I have the pleasure of introducing you to Cat Perna. And Cat's also a member of the Sydney Club. And she's a vet by trade, but a very new vet. So Cat, tell us a little bit about, I guess, the last 12 to 18 months of your life and what you've been going through, and I guess in particular how you've approached and handled some of the stresses that life has thrown your way.
Sure. So I'm what's considered a new or recent graduate. I graduated in December 2019 after 5 long years at vet school, and for me it was actually 11 years at university, so it was a culmination of 3 degrees. But in particular, the last year of vet school is, 12 months of placements. I was fortunate to go overseas for a few of my placements, which I think was great experience, but it was also added stress of traveling and all that on top of it. But in particular, the end of vet school, you do 40 weeks of placement, and it ends in 3 oral exams, and pretty much if you don't pass them, you don't graduate. So it is, a very intense and stressful time to get through that. And one of my biggest stresses was I actually failed one of the exams. You do get a resit, and I also, stuffed up on that one as well. So kind of having to fight for your degree and convince all your academics that you're worth kind of graduating and worth becoming a vet is very difficult, very stressful time, and you start to second guess yourself quite a lot that if I can't get through a 15-minute oral exam, how am I going to work as a vet? But I think it definitely allowed me to do, I did more study, I did more research in everything, and I feel like I've come out better for it, even though it was a very horrible 2 months of time and waiting for those results as well. I think that was one of the worst parts, is once you've done it, you've got to wait until your results come out. But I passed the final one and graduated. Unfortunately, I missed the graduation ceremony with my entire cohort. So the 100 students I did 5 years of vet school with, I didn't get to walk across the stage with them. And I think that was probably one of the biggest upsets of the whole thing. So, but the good news was I could start work straight away. So I started work in December last year. My initial job, I lasted 3 months in, and I wasn't enjoying the environment. It was an 1.5 hour drive to work every day and an 1.5 hour home. And wow. It was not as supportive as I needed. And I think the lucky thing for me was I worked that out pretty quickly. And I've since started a new job. I've been there 6 months now, and absolutely loving it. So great support from the other vets I work with, and really great support from the whole team. They're all aware that I'm a new graduate and have a lot of questions a lot of the time, but it's been fantastic working in a very supportive team. So
that's quite an incredible 12 months that you've been through. There's a lot of things that you said there that I can really relate to, having been an athlete in a former life. I can really relate to the sense of pressure and the performance required, that failure is not an option scenario that you found yourself in. And then even inside of that, experiencing, the pressure to perform, and then ultimately not performing, and then having to find something inside of you, and then the inevitable self-doubt that creeps in. During that time, what were some of the things that you did, or who were the people that you reached out to? What got you through that really difficult time when you knew you had to succeed and it was an imperative to succeed. How did what mechanisms or strategies or people helped you through that bit?
So in the first probably 12 hours, it was a lot of crying.
That's sometimes really useful though, isn't it?
It is. Once that first 12 hours was up, it was kind of like, okay, now I can try and work out what I need to do. But the support of family was definitely there. So obviously my partner of 11 years now was there the whole time by my side, trying to help me through it. And my parents, of course, definitely mum, lots of phone conversations and, what do we do next? Having to have Chris and mum talk about going to the uni and talking to someone, which was like, can't do that one, but that's all right. Thanks for the encouragement kind of thing. And then it was reaching out to, so I had a few academics that I really trusted and really got along with during my placements, and I was able to reach out to them, and they opened up their time to help train me a little bit more and help me get through, find out why I was failing. And it was literally just the stressful situation. It's not that I didn't know the information. It was, you're sitting in a room, you've got two academics who have many years experience sitting in front of you, and there's a recorder on the table, and you've got to just tell them answers. And it's just that environment that you put in. It just, sometimes you then forget everything you've learned, which is very frustrating. But reaching out to those academics to do further study and further training so that I could get through was one of the biggest things that got me through. So it's trying not to give up, even though I wanted to in the first day or two following the results. It's then kind of telling yourself, you can't give up.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people that would feel very justified in going, oh, well, it's not meant to be. And there's that fine balance between, it sounds like there's a couple of things that you did. I really like that you just fell in a heap, because that's like, to experience the sense of loss that you would have felt at that failure, maybe a little bit of shame in there as well. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff mixed up in that. And sometimes, we choke down on that stuff instead of actually fully expressing it. And once we fully express it, it can resolve itself, and then you go, okay, cool, that's done, now I can think clearly. And then you got resourceful, and in that more resourceful state, you're able to actually go, okay, who in my immediate network do I know that can help me? And the other beautiful thing about that I can hear in your story is the realization that it wasn't that you weren't capable, it was just that the significant pressure cooker that you were put in, that very unusual, very rare environment of perform now, like on the fly. Like there's normally you get preparation, all the rest of it. So that realization that obviously getting your some training and some preparation to actually prepare for that, to then have another crack at it, and you got there in the end, which is amazing. And I think the other thing that I wanted to ask you about as well, and I feel like it's a similar kind of strategy, like it takes a lot of maturity and sense of self, and self-preservation, but also self-worth, to have the courage to pipe up and say to an employer as a new graduate, this isn't working for me, this environment doesn't suit me, and you're not giving me the support that I require to be what I need to be for this business. Talk me through that, because that's a really incredible and very courageous thing. So I want to know more about how you realized that, and then how you dealt with that.
So it was many practiced conversations with my partner, and kind of him helping me word it the best way I could. I didn't want to burn any bridges or upset anyone, especially, it is a relatively small industry, and your name definitely gets passed around if you get on the wrong side of things. good side of things as well, but unfortunately the bad stuff tends to follow you a bit easier. So it was, I approached it more as it was not the right position for me, in that the stresses and especially the drive. I think I focused on that the most with it, because 3 hours in a car every day, plus the mental, I don't even know how to say it, like having to be switched on the whole time you're at work, and you've got 10-hour shifts a lot of the time. It gets too much to do all the time. So I really focused on, it needs to be the right move for me, and that is to leave. So it was a very scary conversation to have. And approaching my 30s now, but this is my first full-time kind of job. I was at uni for 11 years, so I had never had that conversation with anyone. I did casual work here and there, but, never really had to explain to someone why I needed to leave. So it was pretty daunting, but having that conversation in person and face to face, I think, well, I hope it was all right, but I don't think my boss took it too well, because I think everyone from the practice signed my going away card except him. So I think he took it a little bit sore with it, but it definitely was the right move for me to get out.
Yeah, and I wondered, inside of like your decision-making process that led up to you actually, then gaining the courage to talk about it and bring it to a head, was there a sense of, like, was there a conversation in your head, perhaps, during the car rides to and from work, was there like a self-worth kind of conversation? Was there I need more than this, I'm worth this, I'm better than this situation? Like, did that come into it?
It was more that I didn't think I was going to progress in my professional career with it. So I wasn't getting the number of cases that I needed to learn. And if you don't have, a large enough caseload to start with, you don't progress, you don't get better. So there's a fine line between enough cases to learn and too many that you then overflow from that. But it was definitely something that, I wasn't getting the experience that I wanted, and I knew I wasn't going to get better without it. So it definitely was an aspect as to why I left.
And so tell us a little bit more about your industry, and I guess your experience in supporting and helping other colleagues, in similar circumstances or situations. Give us a bit of an insight into what you're doing in that space.
So the vet industry is unfortunately the highest profession of suicides. It's not a great badge of honour to have, but I think it stems from, a high amount of empathy that you need to have for people and their pets, especially. Like every case, every patient we treat as if it's our own. And I don't think you can do the job if you don't do that. People tend not to last too long if they don't have that empathy as well. And, the knowledge is one of the big aspects. A lot of the health professionals, they have the knowledge and how to with suicide. So it's not like, I think everyone in the vet industry that would try suicide almost succeeds. Whereas I think a lot of other industries, it probably isn't the case. But
I've never actually thought about it, but you're right. Like, they're euthanizing animals every day, so it would be very easy to do that to yourself if that's what you wanted to do.
And
wow, I've never thought about it in that way.
And we have the access to. So we have access to all the medicines that we need. We know exactly how they all work. And it's not a great way to think about it at all, but I think another aspect of it is vets tend not to value their time, and I'm a big case of that, in that I got told that at my performance review recently, and that I'm not charging appropriately. So I need to start valuing my time and the time that I put into cases. I need to show, I've done 5 years of university to be where I am, the countless hours and overtime that we do. We just don't charge for it because we know, a lot of people are financially constrained and really struggle to provide the medicine and services they need for their pets. But we feel for the animals, and we tend to do it anyway, even if we don't charge for it properly. So
yeah, that's a lot of yeah, because when you think about it, it'd be a good day that you're just prescribing a medicine, or giving them just a checkup. But more often than not, the cases would be a lot more dire than that. You're dealing with some really difficult conversations with people as well, and then difficult choices that people are needing to make. So what are some of the coping mechanisms? How do you counteract that?
Having a fantastic team is the first part. So the nurses we work with and other vets is so crucial to getting through, especially day to day. I mean, you have your family at home that you can talk to, and it's always a bonus. Like, I call mum nearly every night and just have a bit of a chat about how the day went, kind of thing. And having
like
that time to debrief,
like a download.
Yeah. Even just talking about it once, sometimes it's more than once with me because I get stuck on things, but it's enough to let your mind process what's happened. But having your family don't tend to know exactly what you do or why it's so stressful that something didn't go that way, whereas your nursing team and your other vets, they know exactly what it's like. So having them there to help you through cases, or if you, like, I'm struggling with cases that not exactly sure what's the next step, I've got someone I can turn to go, I've got this case, can you help talk it through with me or something? And 9 times out of 10 I'm on the right track. I'm still learning, still early in my career. So
it's so important to get that validation, though, isn't
yeah.
it? Like, that reinforcing of, yeah, you're on the right track.
And I think the pressure is so much worse because I'm dealing with a living animal or a living being. So, if we stuff up, it can be dire. So you never want it. You never want that, and you never want the responsibility that something happened is your fault. So it definitely adds a lot more pressure to your day. But having a good mix of nice cases, so vaccinations, puppies, kittens, all of that. In between,
the odd desexing here and there.
Yeah. Straightforward cases throughout the day, and our nurses and reception staff are really good at making sure it's not bad thing after bad thing coming in all the time. So it's definitely helpful.
Yeah. And on the client side, what have you really noticed? Is there, obviously, given the fact that you're dealing with someone's like family member, almost, or fur baby, actually dealing with the client would be really difficult. Is there an expectation, or is it just by virtue of the fact that, that it comes with the job that you have to almost like counsel the client as well? Does that happen?
A lot of the time. Most of the time it's having the conversation with them about what needs to happen. So, the best thing for your animal at this point in time. And some of those conversations end up being talking about quality of life, and that is the worst conversation to be having is when's the right time? There's never a right time. So when is the most appropriate time for something like that to happen? And counselling is definitely on there. I mean, we can't do anything without the approval of clients. So building really good trust with your clients and rapport, having them come back each time. I've got a few now that will only come back to see me, which is nice feeling to have that, they trust me so much that they only want to come back to see me. So that's good, but it's yeah, being
Big
honest with them as
responsibility too.
well. Yeah, yeah, being really honest with clients, especially on how much things cost.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, it's financial discussions I'm having with clients, in that, dog's got a really bad skin issue. It's a lifelong treatment with some things, so that they understand that this is a lifelong thing to have your dog comfortable and not ill. And sometimes that's a big thing for someone to think about, is like, oh, have I been doing the wrong things to start with? And you've really got to counsel them to be like, we want to do the best thing from now, rather than focusing on all the things that they might have missed up until now. So
Yeah, wow. Yeah, because they'd be dealing with that sense of culpability, like
yeah,
that they did a bad thing or a wrong thing, or they didn't know, or they didn't come sooner,
yeah,
or they can't afford the
can't afford it.
medication, or
That's a
yeah,
big one.
yeah, that would
Not
be the
being
hardest
able to
part.
afford a procedure, or the medication needed, is a really big challenge in our
Yeah,
industry.
because then that leads to some really difficult choices, and then obviously difficult conversations as well.
Yeah,
And then there's all the the loss associated with particularly where people really rely on their pets as their number one companions. There's a lot of people that without a pet they're completely isolated, and never more so than in the current circumstances. So
yeah,
people would be they rely on that little soul to just wander around the house and kind of help them not feel alone. So when it comes to the choice of what's right for the animal,
yeah.
that can be really
We
difficult.
we noticed a big increase in patients coming in during COVID. So we were one of the few industries that actually had an increase in work, and people were home more often, so they were noticing things. Unfortunately, all the cats in Queensland had their owners home. It stressed them out. So most times we were getting cats in that were stressed because their owners were now home 24/7, and didn't leave them for their peace and quiet time.
That's hilarious.
We have a lot of new puppies coming in, people feeling like, there's nothing to do at home. We want another pet or something to keep us company. And especially there's several people that, they live alone, and they have either a cat or a dog at home with them. And if something's to happen to that animal, that they really don't cope very well at all. So, and especially now where you can't even, really go out and visit your friends when anything's happening. So it was, a really stressful time for a lot of owners, and especially if their animals needed to stay in hospital overnight or something. They were calling multiple times in the day, just checking up, making sure everything was all right. So keeping their peace of mind was more difficult sometimes than looking after the animal. So
Animal, yeah, God, wow, there's so many layers, isn't there?
yeah,
Well, that's you provided some incredible insights, that I think for a lot of us forget that the reason why vets do 5 years, it's similar. A general practitioner does 6 years basic med school, but they're only learning one cardiovascular and pulmonary system and nervous system, whereas you guys are learning it for every single species pretty much.
yeah,
A parrot is different to a dog, is different to a fish, is different to a cat. I've always marveled at the brilliance and capability of people who choose veterinary, as their arena in which to express their brilliance. So congratulations on pushing through and bringing to fruition your dream of being able to work in the industry, and keep checking in and doing those debriefs, and supporting yourself and your colleagues, because God knows, we and more importantly the animals of the world need you guys, and by the sounds of it, if the animals are healthy, then the people and the humans are more healthy. So it's a really beautiful symbiotic thing,
yeah.
that you guys get to do for everyone. Thanks so much for sharing your story with us, Kat. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.